Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to close out your payroll module for the year in your Microsoft Dynamics GP solution. I'm Sarah Novak, Marketing Manager here at LBMC Technology Solutions, and I'm just going to go over some quick housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone is muted, so if you experience any technical difficulties, please let us know using the chat panel. We will be taking questions throughout today's webinar, so feel free to submit them at any time. This webinar is eligible for CPE. In order to qualify for CPE, you must stay on the entire session and answer all of the polling questions when prompted. If you do have any issues with the polling questions, please make sure to either take a screenshot or send us a chat to let us know that you're having issues. We will be recording this session and sending that out in a few days' time. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to Deborah Gnetz, and she is a senior implementation consultant here at LBMC Tech. Deborah has an accounting and computer science background, and she even did her first installation of GP in 1988. So she is pretty qualified to be here today. We're so happy to have her with us. On a personal level, she's a certified Red Cross CPR and swimming instructor, loves the outdoors, and even builds furniture. So you are in good hands today. With that, I will turn it over to you, Deborah.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm going to start this slide deck because I have a lot to get through in a short amount of time. So I'm going to start kicking this off. This is what our agenda is going to be. It's about LBMC, important notes, pre-year-end task, set up to create and reconcile year-end wage file to payroll records, other payroll tips, alignment issues, rate changes, and give y'all some time at the end for any questions. There's a little picture of me, but I'm going to keep moving forward. So there's a little bit about LBMC, what we've done. Our biggest thing is we're trying to empower everybody to use all their tools that they have and then get new tools to enhance everything they can do for their productivity and their financials. I'm not going to try to read all this slide and everything. You'll be getting this as a handout later. And by the way, you will be getting a handout with the verbiage about each one of the slides, so you have it for reference. So please do not try to have writer's cramp and write everything down. You will be getting a printout. But, listen, and if you have questions, ask me. These are some of the awards that LBMC has received in the last year. So I want to put those out there for y'all. And then this is what our tech department tries to do for everything. So we're just trying to growing professional service organizations. So now we're going to get down to some important notes about payroll close. I'm not giving this stuff with any legal capacity. I'm just trying to give you the information, give you the data that's out there, and give you information about how to make sure your system is correct so it calculates correctly. So the FICA Security and Medicare tax rates do not change for the new year, which is not happening this year. It is changing. You could choose to process a payroll or two for the new year using the previous year tax tables if you need additional time before creating your year-end file. Your federal withholding rates would still be last year's rates, but in most cases, and I looked at them for this year, they would not be materially correct. If you need to install payroll tax tables for the new year prior to creating your year-end wage file, you will need to make sure that you correct the rates and limits are in the Microsoft Dynamics GP administration setup system payroll taxes for the FICA Social Security at the time the year-end wage file is created. When you're ready to update your tax tables, you may do this yourself, or you can ask us and we'll be glad to help you. You can update the payroll tax tables by logging into GP, and you must be the SA user. Then you go to Microsoft Dynamics GP menu, Maintenance, US Updates, check for tax updates. Choose the automatic method And when you're using the automatic method, you need to know the telephone number that your software is registered with. Follow the instructions on the screen. This only needs to be installed one time for your entire system and may be done from the workstation and be in any company. Verify it is updated, the tax tables, by looking at the Microsoft GP Administration Setup System Payroll Tax window, and the last tax update in the upper right-hand corner will have changed. And you're looking for a release date is the first, normally in the month of December. So you need to be looking for that. A lot of people will go look at this window before they quote verify. They will go to that location first, do a screenshot or write down the tax date, go through the steps, go back and verify that the date that they had written down before has now changed to a date in December. If you get errors during this update, try doing the update directly on the SQL Server or contact LBMC. It is a good idea to update your tax tables periodically to be sure you have the latest tax tables on, but do not do this process after 12/15 if you have not completed your last checks for the year or have not created your year-end file yet. What's important is the first round of tax tables for the new year usually release around 12/15. So if you update tax tables after 12/15, you may get tax tables for the new year. Do not update the tax tables until you're done processing the 2022 checks. Usually, we would also want you to validate the 2022 year-end wage file before installing this. But if the new Social Security Medicare maximums are not changing, the timing would not be so sensitive about what is done for the year and prior to installing this. Remember, we're having changes this year. The payroll year-end close and W-2s do not need to be done prior to installing this. It should be installed prior to building, calculating, and print checks for your first checks dated in 2023. If you install this in order to have it on for printing your checks for the new year and still need to create the year-end file for the old year, the FICA Social Security maximum can be manually edited back to the previous year maximum temporarily while you create the year-end file. So remember that you can go back and edit this if needed. You need to verify whether there is a year-end service pack update to be installed. Yes, there is one for this year. If there is a year-end update and you qualify to need it to be installed, it does not need to be done prior to 1/1 necessarily, but it does need to be done prior to when you create the year-end wage file and prior to updating the tax tables. Installing the year-end update and updating the tax tables are two separate items. So remember, both pieces have to be done. So if you ask for an update to the new service pack that's coming out, then you need to make sure that you request that they also install your tax tables if you want them to do it for you. So contact LBMC prior to installing any service packs on your system to be sure all companion products and customizations are compatible. And companion products are things like if you have E1 products like Smart Connect, Smart View, anything that's a third party, it's also known as companion products. So keep that in your mind. Employers may now be required to report the aggregate cost, employer plus employee portion, or COBRA premium of group health insurance on the W-2 in Box 12, Code DD. So you need to make sure you see the IRS website for the further details regarding official rules. You can contact LBMC if you need assistance setting up benefit codes in GP Payroll. If you've not been calculating this throughout the year, a one-time manual check adjustment beginning balance type will be required after codes are set up and assigned to employees, or you can manually enter this information directly in the Edit W-2 window. Remember, there's pitfalls if you do it in the Edit W-2 window if you have to rebuild that year-end wage file for any reason you've lost any changes that you have made. Be sure the GP user date is a date within the new year while building, calculating, and printing checks. Failure to do so may cause the FICA tax to be incorrect for employees over the limits and could update summary tables for the incorrect year. So if you're running payroll and you have not created your year-end wage file, you need to be very careful about your user date in the bottom left-hand corner of the Dynamics GP window. The payroll year-end tax are independent from other GP modules. So you could be closing other modules. Each module can be closed on their own, but payroll is independent of that year-end process. So at this point, we're going to have a polling question.
All right, everyone, the first polling question is live. That question is true or false question. Employers may now be required to report the aggregate cost, employer plus employee portion, or COBRA premium of group health insurance on the W-2 in box 12, code DD. All right, well, thank you everyone for answering so quickly. And of course, that answer is going to be true.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to some pre-year-end tasks. There we go. You want to make sure you purchase your W-2 forms. There are multiple formats. There are the 4-2 employee 4-square condensed laser employee copy and envelopes, the W-2 single wide 2 per page laser format for employer federal copy, a W-2 single wide 2-page laser format for employer state copy in other jurisdictions, and the W-2 single wide 2 per page laser format for employer copy to keep, or you could run the employee set through a copy machine after they are printed on. In the handout you will be given, there is a link of a place that sells all the different formats. And my suggestion would be, if you already have a format that you used in prior years that you have formatted and used, I would get the same format, because there is minor tweaking that normally happens to be able to print your W-2s for the new year. But you need to make sure that that's one of the tasks that you're getting done. You want to install the year-end update service pack as soon as it's released by Microsoft Business Solutions support. Right now, we are working diligently to get everybody scheduled to get those year-end updates in and installed. If you have not gotten your time slot, make sure you reach out, and you'd want to reach out to tech support at lbmc.com to be able to get yourself, or talk to your account executive to be able to get yourself scheduled. But for this, you're going to verify that the current version of Great Plains installations are correct. So you would look at your help to see what version you're on currently. You'd have to download the Microsoft GP service packs. You'd have to plan to have all users out of Great Plains until the year-end update has been installed on all workstations. And since most of us have now gone to where we do things on the web, that means that all of our remote desktops that we're logging into have been updated, as well as the SQL Server, which is done first. If you're using Citrix, all your Citrix environments would have to be updated with it as well. Plan to have all, did the workstation. So let's see, have the SA and other passwords available so you can access the SQL Server. You'd want to make sure that you have looked to make sure that all 30 companion product softwares affecting Dynamics GP are compatible with the version of GP that you are upgrading to. If you're not sure if everything's ready, you can send a copy of your set file, which is in C, Programs x86, Microsoft Dynamics, GP, dynamics.set. And they can review it. You can send it to tech support at LBMC, have them review your third parties. We keep a master list of which products have been updated and are ready to go. So make sure that before you try to install it yourself, that you have confirmed that all that is correct, and make sure that we have looked at any custom programming that you may have, and we'll be able to find that in that list in that set file. You want to do a SQL backup of all databases, including the Dynamics database, and make a copy of all your reports dictionaries. People forget to do that, and a lot of times report dictionaries will become corrupt if you do not upgrade them to the new version. So making sure we have a good copy that we can convert is very important. Load the year-end update service pack on all workstations, i.e. remote desktops, according to Microsoft's instructions for the version that you're running. And you want to check and confirm version running Microsoft GP, HR, and Payroll, setup Payroll has a current last year update date. So there's a way that you can check to make sure it has the current version. Magnetic media, this is very important. This year, if you have 10 or more employees, you must use the magnetic media to send in all the W-2 information. If you have next year, it is 0. Everybody is required to use magnetic media. So make sure that you have either applied or renew your password to submit your file online. So where you want to go is this Business Services Online, SSA.gov, to make sure that you can get to your portal to be able to get your file up. You also want to download and install AccuWage program onto the workstation that will be processing the payroll year end. A lot of times people come and go. The workstation that they had is not the one the new employee has, that AccuWage is not installed. So you want to make sure that it's installed. They've used that user ID and password to get in. You want to make sure that you have it done before 12/31. They do not guarantee that they will get everybody fixed in the new year. They want 30 to 31 days notice to go in there and try to help you get yourself up. So you want to make sure that you try to have this done before December 31st. So this magnetic media is very important that you've tested and do it within the next 2 weeks before everybody leaves for the holidays. Record non-cash taxable benefits to include on the W-2s. So these non-cash taxable benefits need to be recorded throughout the year, or on the final paycheck, or on the on some people will go in and just do it at as a manual check and do it as an entry. Examples that are being put on these are for life insurance premiums that are greater than 50,000, auto allowances, etc. You want to confirm that the subject to taxes boxes are marked properly when you set up any new deduction or benefits prior to assigning the deduction or benefit code to employees. Also verify that the payroll posting accounts are correct. Administration, setup, posting, payroll accounts. If the type drop downs for taxable benefits expense, debit and taxable benefits payroll credit are set up, so make sure you have accounts in there. So we need you to verify your W-2 box numbers and labels. To verify it, what box numbers and labels you need with the IRS website. I gave you the link in this picture, and it's also in the handout you're going to get. The W-2 box numbers and labels may be verified by the following location in GP for any special codes, 401k, disability, benefits, etc. So you'd go to the two locations. You need to look at the deductions and you also need to look at the benefits. And you need to do this in each company because just because I'm fixing it in one company does not fix it in a different company. You have to look at each one individually. If you make changes, you want to make sure that you only make changes to the W-2 boxes and the label. And as long as you've touched no other fields on the window, you would want to say yes to roll these changes down. But you want to make sure you have a current backup prior to doing this, so we do not have to manually fix every employee if something went wrong. So you always want to make sure that we have a good backup before you do something and roll it down to a massive number of employees. You want to verify your federal and state employer ID numbers. To do this, you're going to go to Microsoft Dynamics GP, HR and Payroll, Setup, Payroll, Tax ID. You want to make sure that you look at the different tax codes. So you're going to want to look at your federal and your states to make sure that you have your tax ID numbers in there. If they are not in there, they do not print on the W-2s. So this is where the information is stored. Your unemployment ID for FUTA and SUTA can be verified at Tools, Setup, Payroll, Unemployment Tax. You want to verify that the boxes are marked properly for statutory employees. For this, you're going to go to Cards, Payroll, Tax Information. You want to mark this box if the employee is subject to FICA withholding, but not federal withholding. The retirement plan box will mark automatically on the W-2 if the deduction code is marked properly with the W-2 box label. If the employee is eligible to participate in a retirement plan, but is not participating, has no retirement deduction, mark this box if you need it marked on the W-2. You want to set up your fiscal periods. The fiscal periods are set up by going to set up company fiscal periods. You want to make sure that you have the new year ready to go. I want to complete my final paycheck runs for the year. I want to plan to have other users out of Great Plains payroll windows when the year-end files are being created. This is real important because you don't want changes to be happening while you're trying to generate this file. Be prepared to do periodic backups throughout the day before or after any process that would take a long time to redo. This file takes a while to generate depending on how many people you have. So you'd probably want to have a backup right before you did this step to make the year-end wage file, because it does take a while. So at this point, we're going to poll for another question.
All right, the second question is open right now. That's another true or false question. The following task should be completed prior to December 31st. Employers should test their business services online to make sure access still works so magnetic media files can be submitted. True or false? And Deborah, we had a question come in, and I thought you could answer this while people are entering their answer. Someone asked what AccuWage is. Do you mind describing?
AccuWage is Social Security's portal to push your W-2 file with all of your employee information for all the W-2s and your W-3 up to Social Security.
Oh, great. Thank you for explaining that. We have almost everyone has answered. Let's wait on a couple. All right, and of course, that answer is going to be true. So congratulations on everyone got that one right.
So now we're going to go through the steps to create and reconcile the year-end wage file to the payroll records. You want to back up your company databases. The step is normally performed by your IT department. They will need to back up all databases using Payroll and Dynamics database. I personally suggest that they back up all payrolls, no matter if they're using Payroll or not, because if they have to restore something or restore everything, then you'd need every database. Please name them with the the pre-year-end payroll backup and store in place that will not be purged at the limit on the server. Most servers in their backup file locations have a timing that it stays there for 3 days and then it gets purged. So you might need to build a folder and label it the pre-year-end payroll backup and put those backups over in that folder that's not recognized by the normal backup folder to be purged out. I've seen this happen to quite a few people, and it's very painful to go back and fix everything again that we've already fixed for them. All right, we need to print the pay code summary, deduction summary, benefit summary, state and local tax summary information. And I've listed where to go get all these. So we're going to go to payroll period end date range is going to be January 1 through December 31, and you can print all those. You want to either reprint quarter 1 through 3 or get your files that you submitted for quarter 1 through 3 and have them handy and print the 941 for quarter 4. Most people will pull the ones that they have already turned in and use those because you've already dealt with fractions of cents and the rounding, so you would want to use those on your reconciliation. You want to move your payroll transaction data into the year-end wage file. So we're going to go to HR and payroll, routines, payroll, year-end closing. Notice mine says 2027 because I took it from my test database, but this is what the file looks like. We want to go in and print the last page of the year-end wage report. So when this generates, it normally generates for 1 page per person, and it can be massive. So if you've taken the time, which you need to let it generate, and you've got it on your screen, I would say save it as a PDF so you can always get to it, so you don't have to sit there and wait for this long report to regenerate. And when you're generating this, you want to make sure that your date for your employee is down in the bottom left-hand corner is dated 12/31/22 again, so that it knows if I'm doing it in January, I still want it to be dated 12/31/22 in that bottom left-hand corner and generate this. If I have to do this again and build the file again, I would go back to the previous location and regenerate the file and go in and at that point make whatever adjustments I need to make. Most people have had it where they have installed the payroll taxes, they generate the file and the FICA Social Security is way off. They realize they've got a problem, they go back, they delete the bill that they've already done, go fix the tax informations for the Social Security FICA to have the correct limit in there and go back and regenerate the file. Once they regenerate the file, they go back to taxes, put in this 2023's as an example, limit, and so that if anybody does payroll, their limits are correct while they're doing payroll. So it's a back and forth process until I make sure I have everything correct. But if I change the taxes, as soon as I get through generating, I'm going to go back and rechange those taxes. But this year-end report, when I run it, does take time to come up because it's normally 1 page per person with all the information. So it's very large. The totals on this report will be used to tie out summary reports. So those summary reports I had you pull in the step previous are going to be used when we get down to reconciling. So when I get through with that step, I'm going to go to the go in and I want to print my validation report. So I'm going to go to HR Payroll, Routines, Payroll, print the W-2s, and then choose Validation Report, which is what I have dotted down here on the screen. So the validation reports is going to go out and it's going to verify addresses, social security numbers, any errors that show on this report. And I want you to know that it is normal to see pennies from rounding, but they are not material. They need to be fixed before your W-2 or filing your quarter four reports. So if you see somebody that's off a penny or two, that is not material to go in and go back and adjust everything. They're looking for material problems. That is not a material problem. If I have a social security number that's wrong, that is material because it will not, your file will not pass through that AccuWage portal because the social security is bad. So you want to make sure you get those social securities right and the addresses are the right length so they will go through. All right, so this is a screenshot of a reconciliation that I normally use. This is my section 4. It has 3 other sections above it. It's a file that goes in that I can reconcile each type of the wages. So down here it's set up where I can put in my quarters and get my totals where came from my 941s. And then I'm gonna put my year-end wage information. I want to see what my differences are between the two. But this totals from B, A, and C are coming from doing calculations to figure out my Social Security and Medicare, et cetera, and my gross wages up above. So these are coming from there, and it's giving you a different variance as well. You're looking to see if I have anything that has a variance or a difference over and above 0, because otherwise I know I have a problem. This workbook will be given to you after this meeting so that y'all can use it to help you reconcile for year end. All right. So there are causes or possible causes for incorrect taxable wages. And there are 5 of them. The tax boxes at the setup level of a pay code deduction of benefit was incorrect. If changes were made at the setup level, they will only roll down to codes where there is no transaction history and the code is active status on the employee. The tax boxes at the employee level does not say yes to use the default from the setup when adding a code. To embrace on that, if I have my company, my setup for the company for this pay code or deduction code set up to say taxable, but on my employee card, I have changed it to not be taxable for federal state taxes, then I'm going to have an error when I do that year-end wage file. If I need to have an employee have something different, then I'm going to go in and make new pay codes for that because they are specific for that employee that I need to add it to. And that pay code, when the system is looking at the company setup and generating the year-end wage file, would be correct. So most problems with reconciling are due to my company setup for taxable is different than what my employee says for taxable. That being said, I do have some Smart List Builder reports that we can add into your system if you have Smart List Builder that helps you identify where you have changes that are different. So if you get stuck and you're out of balance, normally it's because of a company employee being set up differently. And I do have some tools to help you find it yourself and get it fixed. A payroll transaction didn't have state or SUTA state filled in appropriately. Sorry. A lot of times when I'm setting up rapidly a state or a SUTA state, if you did not choose the correct buttons and it did not calculate correctly, then I can have a problem. So that's another issue that will cause the SUTA to be out of balance. Payroll adjustment was keyed incorrectly. System issue. And I'm going to say something about this payroll adjustment was keyed incorrectly. If I'm doing an adjustment, there are cells to put what is the taxable portion of that pay code or deduction code. And if I do not fill that cell in, now that record is not going to be recorded correctly when I'm doing my year-end wage file. So a lot of times that's where the problem is. We have to go in and void out that transaction, put in a new transaction, and fix the taxable pieces. The system issue is normally somebody's lost connection back to the SQL server. So there's a system issue and something didn't finish posting accurately. And we just have to go in and fix the problem. So let's go through some hints. The payroll summary report, Microsoft Dynamics GP, I'm going to read the whole thing. We're looking for the period end, is not always accurate, and the tables that hold the data for this report are not always updated properly if there have been manual adjustments. Likewise, the federal wages listed on Microsoft Dynamics GP, the summary, payroll summary, are not from the same table as the W-2 numbers are pulled from. So fixing these fields in my employee summary does not correct the W-2s. Oops, sorry about that. It is safer to do the reconciling against either the 941 or the year-end wage report, since those use amounts that accurately land on tax reports that are submitted. The FICO wages should equal total pay code summary less pre-tax deductions from deduction summary report other than 401k plus taxable benefits. And that calculation is what drives people crazy trying to figure it out. So we can always pull you a list that shows you which ones are pre-tax so that you can make sure that you get the correct ones on your reconciliation. The FICA Social Security wages may be lower than the FICA Medicare wages because of employees who earn above the FICA Social Security maximum taxable wages. In most cases, if a code is subject to FICA Medicare, it is also subject to FICA Social Security. So the difference between these two totals can be attributed directly to employees over the FICA Social Security max. So if they're not the same, I would immediately go look for people that are over the max and figure out how much they're over the max and see if that is the difference between my FICA Social Security and my FICA Medicare. Federal wages should generally be FICA Medicare wages less retirement deductions, not Roth. State and local wages usually should equal federal wages. And additional steps for the year end, you want to verify the box 12 totals on the year-end wage report are correct by comparing to the totals for appropriate codes on the deduction summary and benefit summary reports. Verify appropriate retirement boxes are marked on W-2s. And you want to verify the employee numbers are properly filled in for federal and state IDs. If any of the above are not correct, you'd want to remove the year-end wage file, fix the issues, then create the year-end wage file yet again. You want to verify the TSA settings on pay codes, deductions, and benefits. You want to be aware that any of these situations where tax boxes were marked differently on employee maintenance level, the method to adjust the FICA taxable wages because of pre-tax deductions marked incorrectly will vary depending on the situation. The solution to test a resolution is always to best test in a test company prior to applying in a live company. So if you have one of these, we really want to take your production database, where the year-end wage file is residing and copy it to one of your test databases. Put in the fix, verify it did what you wanted it to do, and then go do it in the production database. Because it's nothing worse than putting it in and out umpteen times on an employee, so it's best to test over the test company. If you need to do an employee by employee verification comparing the federal and state, modify one of the W-2 one-wide formats in Report Writer so that all the important numbers and employee ID are printed on one line. Then print this report to a file, and you can use that to look at to go researching your informations. That's how you can do it outside. If you want to compare this information as well, I do have a Smart List Builder report that can be inserted into y'all's system so that you can chase this information as well. Federal wages listed on Microsoft Dynamics GP, HR, and payroll cards payroll summary are not from the same table as the W-2 numbers are pulled from. So fixing this field in employee summary does not help with the W-2s. So I'm reiterating what I told you above. If both federal and FICA wages are off, the problem probably lies somewhere in a pre-tax deduction or a pay code having tax boxes marked incorrectly. If only one federal wages are off, the problem is likely because of a 401k deduction. And I normally find most of my errors on the federal 401k side. You want to remove the year-end file and make the corrections. You want to create your media file if required. And these days, if you're 10 or more, you're required. Launch the AccuWage, which is that Social Security program that is used to push your files up to Social Security. And they will alert you if there are any additional items that need to be corrected. You want to, if they send you something back, you want to go back and edit the W-2s, and you can go have a screenshot of where to do that. You want to print the W-2s. You want to print your W-3s. You want to submit the magnetic media, the final file after you've done any edits and it's correct. Install the payroll tax table for the new year. You want to verify that the FUTA, SUTA, and taxable wages are correct. You want to print and file the 1095-C reports if required. And here are what the screen looks like. It's still in the same W-2 window. They just have different boxes down below. And so at this point, we're going to have a poll for another question.
All right, that third polling question is now open. It's another true or false question. And I don't see any other questions right now. Any other questions that have come in for you, Deborah?
I'm throwing lots of information at them quickly.
And doing a thorough job because I don't see any questions.
Now, I will tell them that there is normally at the end of the year, and it hasn't come out yet, a report that you can find in Customer Source, Microsoft Customer Source, with their solution to doing payroll close. My handout that you're getting is all the different years of pain and sorrow, figuring things out to getting things to work. So I'm giving you some additional information.
Great, we've got just about 30 more seconds. Looks like everyone has answered correctly. Of course, that answer will also be true.
Okay, some other little tips. If you've already loaded, there it goes, your tax tables for the new year and then need to recreate the year-end wage file, you can do so by going to Administration Setup System Payroll Tax. You will need to edit the Social Security wage limit to last year's limit if it has changed. And remember, I've told you that it's changing. Recreate the file and change the Social Security wage limit back to the current year's limit once done. So make sure this is where you're going to go choose that correct code and make the change. So make sure that you go and do this if you need to recreate. So it is a valid way of going and doing this. Just people think you can't do it, but it is true, you can. If you already load the tax tables for the new year, and so this is giving you a screenshot of how exactly we're going to do this, where to go get it, put in the code, click on pay rates, come up here, and I'm going to choose again, and I eventually will get to the screen that I really need to get to make the change. So I might make sure that you knew exactly how to get there. So it's basically giving you step-by-steps, follow the arrows, and you will be able to make the change. And this is an old screenshot, but still recreating it. The rules are still the same. Whoop, too far. Uh-oh. Have to go backwards. Again. Okay, if the W-2s or any other form in GP needs an alignment, we have, oh, wait a minute, I gotta go back further. Might have to pause for a second. Let's pause and fix my printout. Okay, here we go. To reprint the quarterly reports after the year is done, change your GP system date to reflect the year for which you need to print the quarterly reports for. And you're going to go to the same place we went earlier. You can go to HR Payroll, Utilities Payroll, and oh, I put that in the wrong location. Sorry about that. These are flip-flopped. I have to fix that before I send it out to you. You really want to go print those quarterly reports, and I need to change that location. It's going to be reports, payroll, quarterly reports, and you want to go in and print those quarterly reports. That's what gives you your 941s. We want to remove employees from history. This is optional. Most people don't do this unless they have a problem and they're running out of space in their hard drive. They'll take care of removing people. If I ever want to do it, I'm going to go to this Utilities Payroll, remove inactive employees in history. If you have human resources, attendance, or employee self-services being used, pay periods or pay schedules for the next year need to be set up. Some time clock programs like Time Matrix also require pay periods to be set up for the new year. So make sure you, if you're using any pay clocks anywhere or any program to track employees' time, verify that they don't need, or you do need to set up the next year pay schedule. If using GP PTO Manager, you may need to do a year-end process to implement auto calendar year calculations. So we're going to pause for another question.
All right, the last polling question is up. If you could please answer this true false question. If you've already loaded the tax tables for the new year, there is no way to recreate the year-end wage file. Is that true or false? All right, looks like most everybody has answered correctly. Of course, that answer is going to be false.
Okay, so let's talk about alignment. If the W-2s or any other form in GP for that, for saying that, needs slight alignment, you can adjust this with the print dialog box. The print dialog box appears after you press the print button. If it doesn't appear for you, turn it on by changing a command in the DEX-INI file. Now, a lot of people will turn it on while they're doing their W-2s and 1095Cs and 942s, all my forms, so that I can do the movements needed to get this stuff to print. But they don't want to see it all year every time I print something. So what I would suggest was you turn it on when you're doing this process to get these forms out the door, and when it's over, you can change it back to the old. So most of the time, if that little box doesn't show up, there's a line in your DEX-INI that says no print dialog equals true. I want to change it to say no print dialog equals false, so that it will come up so that I can do my pixel changes up and down needed to get this to print where I need it in the cells and not have numbers cut off. So if I don't have it, you want to add this to the end of the file, then save the file and relaunch Great Plains. When I'm looking at my DEX-INI, I don't have Dynamics GP loaded. If I'm using a shared location like a remote desktop connection, Citrix, all that, all users must be out when editing the DEX-INI file, and everybody can launch back in once you've made the edit. I want to print the W-2s to the screen. Choose the printer icon on the top left and print the dialog box with horizontal vertical alignments will appear on the right. Adjust according to the situation below. If it prints too high, enter a positive vertical adjustment, and 0.25 is equal to 1 line in those windows. Form prints too low, enter a negative adjustment. If the form prints too far right, enter a negative. If it prints too far left, I'm going to enter a positive. So that's how you're going to move around. All right, we're going to talk about rate changes. You can refer to official sources for the information, but here are a few common items to note. FICA Social Security wage limit is going up from $147,000 in 2022 to $160,200 for 2023. If rates change, this will be updated by the payroll tax table update. So you should be having this in that payroll tax update. The reports will reflect the rate that is in the setup window at the time the report is generated. So if I'm going back and having to rebuild that wage file and I have that payroll tax, this is what's changing. I'll put this in here. So if I had to go back and make those adjustments to rerun those year-end wage file, then I know what the old number needs to be and I know what I need to change it back to if I'm having to rebuild. The SUTA, FUTA rate or wage limit changes need to be made manually in Microsoft Dynamics GP, HR payroll, setup payroll, unemployment tax. These rates are not pushed in with the payroll tax updates. You have to do them yourself for the unemployment. The 401k limits are changing for 2023, which is good news for us people that want to try to save. Changes are necessary and will be need to be updated manually in the benefit setup window and roll down the change. The payroll tax update does not maintain them. The employee contribution limit for 2023 increases to $22,500 from $20,500 in 2022. The catch-up maximum contribution for 2023 increases to $7,500 from $6,500 in 2022, which makes a total of $30,000 if you're over the age of 50. And for that, I'm going to leave the floor to y'all. Do y'all have any other questions? It's a lot of information, but while you're thinking of questions, I'm going to escape out of here. And I'm going to bring up that spreadsheet that I talked about. All right. This is my quarter-end, year-end wage reconciliation sheet that I built years ago. And it's basically, I can put my information in. It tells you where to get it from, pay code summary, deduction summary, where I'm getting the data from. And you're going through and mathematically seeing if I can get to my number that I have on my Medicare wages is an example here. And if I have a difference, what it is. So, you have to go back and figure out where the problem is. And then doing the same thing, if I subtract things out for in and out, I can get down to what my wages and tips are. And here's my FICA Social Security. And then if I get down here to the bottom, that's what I had in this slide that shows you. I'm going to have this sent out to you. You might have your own that you've built, but it's going to be given to you as an example of how to go in and reconcile before you get your W-2s out. You're also going to be getting another handout that is how to record taxable benefit wages in Dynamics GP. It's a little handout that I built, how to go set up the codes, as well as the steps to go through and do the transaction needed to get this information in all those W-2s. So I'll be sending this out to you as well. So with that being said, are there any other questions?
Those are some great resources you have, Deborah. No, I don't see any other questions right now.
Right. Well, I'm going to do this real quick. And I'm going to, in your slide, in the last page, it tells you how to contact us, an email address, and this information. If you have a technical question, of course, you can always ask, do our tech support and stuff. And my name was on the beginning of the slide. You'll see it on the handout when you're giving it. You can always call and write in and ask them to get a hold of me, and they'll send me the messages, and I can help you with any problems that you have.
Thank you, Deborah. I know we've covered a lot of information today, so if there's any questions after this webinar, like she said, please reach out to us. We'd be glad to help you. We will be sending out an email in a couple days with a link to the recording as well as the resources that Deborah had gone over. It will also include a link to a survey. We'd love to get your feedback on this presentation and also learn what other topics you'd like to know more about. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.